Hi, Valerian here, and today we're going to build a part of LinkedIn lead generation machine. What's the difference between this video and other videos that you've probably seen on YouTube? In other n8n related LinkedIn videos, you typically will be shown how to get leads starting from Google. So like you start with the Google API endpoint where you can get links to LinkedIn profiles. This might be good if you know who is your ICP, but if you don't, it might be tricky to understand who is your potential buyer. We're going to use the service that is going to show you the users who actually have intent in buying your products and services. I'm going to show you in a minute. And then we're going to enrich the leads that we're getting from that service with another API, which provides a lot of information about potential LinkedIn leads that you want to work with. So these are the two key points of this workflow that we're going to build, and you can use whatever you want to reach out to those people, to create an automated outreach campaign or to do this manually. So let's go straight into it. Here's what we're going to do. The first one is getting the leads from Devi AI and putting them into a spreadsheet. The second one would be enriching those leads with BrightData. Sometimes BrightData isn't able to handle the retrieval of a specified LinkedIn profile from the first go, and it returns you something that needs to be handled afterwards. So here's the three workflows that we're going to build. Let's start from the first one. So we'll start with Devi AI sending the leads our way and putting them into a spreadsheet. Devi AI shows you buying intent. It monitors social networks based on your specific keywords and shows you people who potentially want to buy your services. For example, here I have 100 leads on LinkedIn with some of the keywords that I specified, like AI automation, workflows, Zapier, manual operations, things like that. So all of these are potential leads that might need my services. I don't really want to use Devi AI for anything else than just getting those leads, just understanding who are those people, getting the URL of those posts, and going forward with my own workflow. I have here settings, and if I go to business info and account management, I can go to webhook and actually configure a webhook. Let's say I want to add a new one, I can add a new one. You can select the sources of leads that will be sent to that webhook. I basically deselected all of those except for LinkedIn because I don't need anything else. And on n8n side, I just start with a webhook node here, select post method, copy the URL, put it in here, click add webhook, it will be tested and ready to go. Then as soon as I have this webhook over here, you can check the test information that is returned here, click test webhook. It sends us some data, and you can see that we have this items set of objects over here in JSON. So I want to iterate through items, so I need to use the split out node. You can use it here, and basically you need to pull the items here. So it will go and split items in the way that n8n actually wants them to be, so you can loop through them and do anything else with standard n8n nodes. Then I'm going to put the cycle here and iterate through those nodes, and I want to put them in a spreadsheet like that. Spreadsheet contains account URL, snapshot ID, I'm going to speak about this a bit later. It also contains the request that the client shared on social network. Let's say I want to build an automation for my company, who can help me with that. Then I want to have the request URL or the post URL in case of LinkedIn. I want to have two columns here, needs outreach and another one needs enrichment. These are the columns that tell my workflow whether I need to do something with this row or not. It's like a Boolean flag in the database. By default, I have nothing in here, but when the user gets here with this initial Devi.ai workflow, I want it to be set to 0 here and to 1 on needs enrichment, because I cannot really outreach to this person yet because I don't have all the details. That's how it's going to work. The problem here is that when we get these notifications with Devi.ai, we don't really know the buying intent. I can see that they have it on their side over here. Like if you go to leads and outreach, you can see that there is this buying intent. But when the leads are sent to this webhook, you can see that there is no buying intent over here. This is a problem. I don't want to outreach to people who don't want to buy my services. I had to build a quick basic LLM chain here to check for buying intent. And what it does, it has this prompt over here, pretty straightforward. I ask it to evaluate the following LinkedIn post and return the buying intent score from 1 to 10, and then I ask it to return it into a specific format. Here I added also the output parser node. It can be enabled here, required specific output format, and after I edit, I provided this JSON example format that I need it to follow once again. So then in this if node, I can actually play around with buying intent. Right now I set it to greater than 0, but for example, if you wanted only the people with the highest buying intent to get into your spreadsheet that you're going to use for outreach, you can put 7 or 8 in here, and then you can play around with this number and find the number that actually is an ideal balance between the number of leads that you get and their quality, right? And finally, we use this Google Sheets node that adds values to this Google spreadsheet. So we have it connected to the Google Sheets, selected the document, the sheet, then we map the columns. To map them, you just need to execute the previous node, and then we go to this loop over items here and put the profile URL over here, put the content to the request, put the URL to the request URL. And then we set the outreach, the needs outreach column to 0 and needs enrichment to 1, because now I need my workflow, the next part of my workflow, to actually enrich this data. Now we're getting to enrichment part. In this case, I'm showing just a few examples of things that can be retrieved from the BrightData API, but you can check it out and see that it returns much more than I actually use in this example. To get started with BrightData, you need, first of all, to install the community node. This is not an advertising of any of those, Devi AI or BrightData. I used them for the first time recently and just liked the integration and decided to share it. When I originally looked for BrightData over here, it was a community node. So when you click it, it will ask you to install the node. You need to install the node first, and then you can use it. So the BrightData enrichment workflow starts with Google Sheets, and we start with selecting the rows that actually have this need enrichment column set to 1. And to do this, we use filter by needs enrichment equals to 1. That's it. Then we add the loop node to go through the records that we got, and then here we get the BrightData node. First of all, we select the web scraper resource. We use scrape by URL, and we select the data set. And there are multiple data sets. You can see that there is a long list. You can do anything with multiple things. What we need is LinkedIn profiles. I already selected. Replace the standard placeholder URL here with this URL from the loop. So we put it in here. We can test this step. And there is a hint here, and there is this if. Sometimes BrightData would not return you the record straight away because it's actually doing scraping real time. Sometimes this node will get timed out and it will not return you the data straight away. So if it's not returning the data, it's saving something that is called snapshot. If you go to your user dashboard in BrightData, you will find under web scrapers over here and logs over here, you will find that there are those snapshots, and all of them have this unique ID. So what we need to do over here is, instead of actually enriching the data, if we see that this node did not return the ID, which is a mandatory field if it returns the actual LinkedIn profile ID, we need to use another flow here and add the snapshot ID over here. And here. This is what I did here as an example. And then we will have another workflow over here that will go through all of those records that have this snapshot ID and use another BrightData API request to get those snapshots from BrightData. Here's an example of BrightData node actually returning the snapshot ID instead of the real values. Here's what it returns. It also sends you a message that your request is still in progress, and we have this snapshot ID over here. And what we need to do in this if node is that if we don't have this ID, so it's going to false branch here, we want to update the row, which we are going to take from the loop. We will just update the snapshot ID. Let's remove all of that and add the snapshot ID from the BrightData node over here. So you can see it added this snapshot ID to my profile over here. So I'm not sure if the BrightData node is going to work now, but we can actually go to the last step straight away, because the logic of this last step, where it enriches the table with the data, is the same for both workflows. So we're just going to test this last workflow here. As I mentioned, it gets the same spreadsheet and it goes through the records that have snapshot ID not empty. By default, you cannot actually filter in Google Sheets node. You cannot filter by value being not empty. So what we do here is we get all of the records, so we don't apply any filters, as you can see, and then we use the filter node over here, and in filter node we set the snapshot ID is not empty. And you also need to convert types when required. Please enable this switch. After this filter node, we add the same loop as we did in the previous example, and then we put another BrightData node downloading a snapshot based on ID. Leave this batch size and part as they are now. They don't really affect our scenario. And you need to add the snapshot ID, which will be taken from the Google spreadsheet. So as you can see, we have it in our loop node over here. We have snapshot ID, so you just need to put it in here. And next we check if data is returned, because actually the snapshot could still have been not processed and there will still be no data. So we need to check if the ID is actually contained in the JSON that is returned by this node. And if it is, then we can finally enrich the spreadsheet with the data from BrightData. Here we will put the following values in the spreadsheet. Let me show you how this works, because I know that some of those snapshots are already done. So you can see this is the returned array for my profile, for example. It returns me the ID, the name, the city, the about text, the posts. It shows you the latest post, its title, and it also shows you the current company where I work and the activity. I think it's quite useful. You can get the latest posts that the user has interacted with, let's say liked or commented, and you can actually get the interaction type over here. And you can also use it to get a better understanding of this person's personality. This can be automated with AI. You can get the information about those latest posts. You can ask AI to summarize it, to do some analysis, and to give you some ideas on how to outreach. So let's finalize this step. So now you can see we have these two snapshots over here, and we have no data over here, but we have the switch that they need enrichment. So let's finally run this step. It successfully enriched my first record here and added my name, latest post, text of my latest post, and link to my latest liked post, to the latest post that I liked. You can also see that it removed the snapshot ID, and this might be tricky because if you want to remove it, you want to pass the empty value, but if you just use the fixed type of field and pass the empty value, you will not get the result you want. It will just not send anything to the spreadsheet. It's not going to be updated. And if you, for example, put space in there, it's going to be updated with space, but space is not an empty string. So next time you want to check for an empty string, you will actually get that record as not empty, even though there is only a space in it. What you need to do is switch to expression over here, and then even if you pass the empty value, like nothing in here, but if it's set to expression, you can see that the output actually has this value, has this field, snapshot ID, and it will become empty. As you can see here, there is nothing in this field. So let's just run this workflow here to test it completely. So it really takes a while because it actually scrapes real time. Okay, yeah, so you can see it added the name of this first person and added the name of the second one, and he has this latest post, and the first person doesn't actually have the latest post, but we have this post which he actually interacted with. For the last one we also have something, and we don't also have the latest post. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.